There is something so pathetic and yet effortlessly relatable about Xander in The Replacement, starting with the hot plate the cat peed on and his mother not respecting privacy boundaries to the different Xander halves finding each other so funny. I say that, realizing just how much heat Xander takes in the fandom, often reasonably so. But in most of the episodes where he is centrally featured, I find his trials easy to empathize with. From his crisis of masculinity in the Zeppo.
Is this a penis metaphor?
Yes, it definitely was. To his case of extreme self-doubt that Spike triggered so easily in the Yoko factor. In fact, it's possible that my case of over-identification is the trigger for my own sense of frustration with him when he commits frustrating and often unaddressed, maybe more so than any other character, errors in judgment or impulse. But with The Replacement, at least, I am firmly in his camp. Curiously, between Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, and the Zeppo, it seems like Xander gets some of the more whimsical and charming character-specific scenes in the series. And after watching The Replacement, I went and looked something up. Jane Espenson wrote Band Candy, Earshot,
Buffy is all of us, we think. Therefore she is.
Pangs, A New Man, Superstar, and The Replacement, and has a couple more great episodes yet to come. That might be a list of greatest hits, second only to Joss himself, and most of them have a similar sort of magical flight of fancy to them. Riley and Buffy are doing Xander a solid, with some hang in his slightly awkward living situation. The two of them both politely ignoring said awkward, and taking everything in stride is just meltingly heartwarming.
I do have SpaghettiOs. Set them on top of the dryer and you're a fluff cycle away from lukewarm goodness.
I have dryer food for lunch.
Buffy seems distracted with her newfound commitment, and Riley decides to help her relax. Xander attempts to emulate, with Xander-like results.
Ow! What are you doing?
Buffy criticizes the on-screen foo, highlighting a phenomena I've always found kind of fascinating. Being a specialist of something and seeing it done poorly in a show or a movie. My dad, a classical pianist, first brought this up when we saw Groundhog Day and said he was taken completely out of the dance scene because he could tell by Bill Murray's hands he wasn't actually playing the piano. It wasn't until I got older and got into tech and games that I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Willow's the same way when we watch a movie about witches, right, Xander?
Oh yeah, she's all like, who uses a cauldron anymore?
That is just a terrific comedic beat, and I love the blacklight demon design, simple though it may be. The next day, the gang checks out a possible apartment for Xander. He awkwardly tries to duck around the topic of money, but Anya lacks the same sort of social decorum and airs some dirty laundry.
Because right now, things are looking pretty untogether, and you can't expect me just to wait around for...
Quiet. Please.
Demon McBlacklight stops in on Giles and gives him a good cross. Now, I know we're all wondering when the Giles knockout counter is coming back, and when it does, I owe you a couple I missed. But I technically count this instance, like the one in The Wish, as a knockdown, not a knockout. Giles isn't going to wake up in a coma from this hit. He even makes the distinction himself in the following scene.
Well, I'm not dead or unconscious, so I say bravo for me.
Based on McBlacklight's odoriferousness, the gang tracks the demon to the city dump.
People say they're recycling. They're not recycling.
Riley was always intended to be a Steve Rogers, but that has to be the most Captain American line he's ever uttered.
Language!
The demon attacks, and Xander takes a shot in the chest from his weapon.
Is this a penis metaphor?
I don't think so. Sometimes a boomstick is just a boomstick. As the gang helps him up, the camera hangs for a moment before revealing that Xander is still there. Dumpster Xander wakes up the next day in the garbage heap and goes home to see himself already getting ready through the window. Ooh la la. Word is that Nicholas Brendon was keeping a little more fit than the writers had envisioned for Xander. Most of the time, his clothes are big and baggy throughout the series. Fitting, then, that the idealized half of himself was allowed to be topless and fit. As Buffy is prepping to go out hunting, she and Riley share a nice romantic moment. I mean, come on, right? Hashtag We Are Dawn? At the very least, this moment feels perfectly sibling to me, and I love how Riley snickers at,
My friend Sharon's older brother knows a girl who died because she choked on her boyfriend's tongue.
man, who am I this season? The girls grab Joyce as she happens by and tries to get her to resolve the argument.
This must be my 2 teenage girls in the house headache.
In his crypt, Spike is making himself a garbage-chic artificial dummy woman that he seems curiously attracted to,
Very posh.
who he immediately kicks across the the Roman pretends is the Slayer. Meanwhile, Dumpster Xander watches Sexy Xander hypnocoin his boss into keeping him on his construction job permanently. Sexy Xander takes his new money and gets the apartment from the landlady, who hits on him. Dumpster Xander attacks, and Sexy Xander convinces the Scoobs that the other one is evil. Dumpster Xander goes to the one person who would always know it's him.
Every Christmas, we watch Charlie Brown together, and I do the Snoopy dance.
That one is an icon for sure. Xander wonders at the one thing in his life that makes him feel like an adult.
Anya.
Sexy Xander is at the apartment with Anya when Dumpster Xander breaks in. The gang figures out Demon McBlacklight was actually trying to split Buffy into two parts. One with the powerful Slayer bits and the other with the squishy human bits.
I mean, why do it? The Slayer half would be like Slayer concentrate, pretty unkillable.
But with both of them being a necessary part of Buffy, Blacklight could then kill the squishy bit, annihilating the whole. Buffy stops Xander from killing himself, takes down Blacklight, and after some terrific thirsty Anya dialogue, Willow gets the Xand back together again, with the most anticlimactic spell in history.
Let the spell be ended.
And the episode ends with Xander and Riley having, a bit of a complicated moment?
Buffy's like nobody else in the world, but she doesn't love me.
Wow. Back to that one in a second. What a joy this episode is. My first time through, I kept wondering how the hell they pulled off the twin special effect so well.
Hey, wait till you have an evil twin. See how you handle it.
I handled it fine.
The last time the show visited this trope was in Doppelgangland, and the use of the green screen composite there was pretty evident. As it happens, Nicholas Brendon actually has an identical twin brother who was used for all the double shots. The evil twin trope is always a ton of fun and has been around forever, from Bizarro Superman to Daredevil to Doppelgangland. There is an episode of Star Trek the original series called The Enemy Within, in which, quoting from Wikipedia, a transporter malfunction causes Captain Kirk to be split into two beings, one good but weak and ineffectual, the other evil but strong and decisive. But the fact that neither Xander is actually evil makes the replacement a fun subversion of the trope, while still using the idea to explore questions about the push and pull of inner identity. And there is a lot here I can personally identify with, from his living situation that he knows even his friends hate spending time in, to some internal sense that whatever adult really means, he has yet to make it there.
This demon, he's like taking my life, and everyone's treating him like a grown-up.
Xander proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that he is his own worst enemy.
Why isn't he firing me?
Whatever external forces may have brought him to this moment, the one thing holding him back in his personal growth and his relationships is actually his own assuredness of his pathetic nature.
But I never help. I get in trouble and Buffy saves me.
Conversely, when he is stripped of his own self-doubt, suddenly his career and love life take major steps forward. As with the things Spike said to him in the Yoko Factor, in the first scene at the apartment, Anya's cutting nature validates the terrible things he already fears about himself are true.
Anya, you can't that stuff away.
Why not?
Because I think maybe they're right.
But Sexy Xander can actually hear what Anya's saying without making it mean anything about himself. And by actually being able to listen to her, affords Anya maybe her most important character-building moment in the series so far.
There's a hurry, Xander. I'm dying. I may have as few as 50 years left.
As a former immortal, she has a paralyzing fear of her own mortality. And with her injured arm and the days just rolling past,
Can I trade in the children for more cash?
she is anxious to do as much living as possible. Under normal circumstances, Anya's anxiety might have triggered Xander's, but with all of his neuroses split away, Sexy Xander is capable of just being there for her in the way she needs.
Maybe it's finally hitting you what being human means.
This is such an important moment in their relationship, and it's not insignificant that all of it occurs with only 50% of Xander present. Of course, since nearly every story in the series relates directly or metaphorically to Buffy herself, I think we can interpret the episode through a broader lens. McBlacklight's attack was, after all, meant for Buffy. Although Dumpster Xander may have been more insecure and vulnerable as Buffy's metaphorical heart and strength, the show is trying to say that vulnerability is paradoxically a necessary component to a strong and complete human being, and certainly a necessary component to Buffy. Being able to accept all parts of herself has been the continual struggle of Buffy's throughout the series, and in the car with Riley, Buffy wonders if he wouldn't be better off with a non-Slayer-fied Buffy.
Well, you have been kind of rankly about the whole Slayer gig. Instead of having Slayer Buffy, you could have Buffy Buffy.
I think his response to her is touching.
Being the Slayer is part of who you are.
Though, admittedly, the episode opening with Riley telling Buffy to get off Slayer duty is something of a contradiction to the way he sees her in the car. The hanging silence that follows after he says he loves her and she doesn't say it back is then that much more of an ache. And I love the way that Sarah Michelle Gellar plays the scene, as though the thought of responding hadn't even occurred to her. But Riley notices the silence, and that may have been the primary influence that led to his confession to Xander at the end of the episode.
But she doesn't love me.
Man, that is a powerful moment. Riley's most memorable for me. And the first time I watched the series, I more or less interpreted Riley picking Xander for this confession as a coincidence of circumstances. Xander just happened to be the one standing there. But in running through the series for the guide, I've noticed a number of curious connections between Xander and Bailey. Or Xander and Ruffy? I like Ruffy. First of all, Xander has always had a thing for Buffy, which manifested all the way back in Season 1 through some intense jealousy over Angel that both Angelus and Angel noticed.
You're in love with her, aren't you?
It all culminated with his inability to handle Buffy's rejection in Prophecy Girl.
I guess the guy's gotta be undead to make time with you.
There's never a clear moment after that when his crush on Buffy seems to go away. Quite the opposite. It's referenced several more times. Xander starts to date Buffy's first metaphorical shadow self, Cordelia. In phases, as he's comforting Buffy over Angelus's actions, there's a long, awkward moment between them that he even comments on. And in Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, when Buffy asks, why Cordelia?
Here, the only other person I'm interested in is, unavailable.
In Season 3, Xander has a thing for Faith.
Was this, also naked?
Xander, find a new theme.
Buffy's next metaphorical shadow self, a thing so obvious that even Cordy calls him out for having a Slayer fixation.
What is it with you and Slayers? Maybe I should dress up as one and put a stake to your throat.
Oh, please, God, don't let that be sarcasm.
After Cordelia ceases to be Buffy's shadow self in Homecoming, her relationship with Xander ends in Lover's Walk, and Xander then loses his virginity to Faith in the Zeppo, someone who also wielded undue influence on Buffy and Riley later on. And in Season 4's Restless, the Buffy of Xander's dream uses a word that seems to stun him.
Way ahead of you, big brother.
Brother.
Anya striking up a relationship with him in Season 4 meant that Xander's crush mostly went unmentioned that season, but the word brother can only sting because the crush is still in place. Taking all that into account, it's not unreasonable to think that maybe Xander feels a connection to Buffy's first homegrown, fully human, long-term boyfriend, Riley. But there are actually a number of significant moments that tie the three of them together. Xander was the one who first revealed the full weight of Buffy's history with Angel to Riley in The Yoko Factor, setting off a very Xander-like fit of Bangel jealousy on Riley's part, if with a bit more muscle and punchiness. That episode featured another moment where Riley told Buffy he loved her and she didn't say it back.
Because I'm so in love with you, I can't think straight.
In Real Me, these three were arguing over Dawn, and Xander defended her by bringing up Buffy's mom inviting in the Master.
Bader.
The very mention of his eminent spookiness puts Buffy at a loss for words, and Dracula's interactions with Buffy are unspoken, but clearly still ever present for Riley and Buffy. Then there was the beginning of the episode where Xander tried to copy Riley's boyfriendness, and Riley noticed. Broadly, Xander and Riley actually have a fair amount in common. Both have major parental issues. Both have a military connection. Riley is now adrift and jobless without the initiative. Xander has been feeling aimless since high school ended. Without the initiative, the only real thing of value in Riley's life is Buffy. And this episode, when Willow asks Xander for the one thing of value in his life, Xander realizes...
Anya.
Taking all of that into account, as weird as it may be, Riley confiding in Xander at the end of the episode seems pretty organically come to over 5 seasons. Now, before anyone jumps on me for this, let me be clear. I'm neither trying to endorse or validate any particular character's perspective in this video, simply pointing out connections that may indicate why those perspectives exist. But I may have more to say about this in the coming episodes. The replacement is terrific. My only real gripe with it is the way in which the Hypnocoin red herring is used. These scenes don't really make any sense once you know the truth of the situation. Unlike the Zeppo, where most of the scenes are dramatically or comically inflated because we're inside Xander's perspective for the duration, the replacement has a much more straightforward and even tone. And the argument for perspective falls flat as in the second Hypnocoin scene, Dumpster Xander Xander can't see what's going on in the apartment, so the only one being fooled by that scene is the audience. And given we're not seeing a filtered Xander perspective and the hypnocoin isn't actually a hypnocoin, the fact that this dude doesn't say, "Harris, stop shining that damn coin in my eyes," just doesn't feel real. I hate audience cheats. Also, is all the finger twiddling supposed to be some kind of handsome guy affectation?
I'm a confortador.
It's a quibble in an otherwise terrific episode, third in a row to open Season 5 that I really enjoy. I wonder if, after numerous outside influences caused so much upheaval to the arc in Season 4, the writers came into Season 5 with a redoubled commitment to getting things right out of the gate. As between Buffy vs. Dracula, Real Me, and The Replacement, most of the major themes of the season have already been laid out for us, along with some serious foreshadowing of this season's major events. Though, I guess with this video, I have yet to touch on the most important question the episode raises, which is, if you had a clone of yourself and they were down, would you know? Yeah, I probably would.
Buffy's like nobody else in the world. When I'm with her, it's like I'm split in two. Half me is just on fire, going crazy if I'm not touching her. The other half is so still and peaceful, just perfectly content. Just knows this is the one. She doesn't love me.